and it's a very interesting and unique history, and also one that took some digging. And so here's basically the all of it in a nutshell. The first season theme was, of course, by the great Bernard Herrmann, and you can I mean, his scoring is so distinctive. You immediately recognize that it's a Bernard Herrmann score, and it's quite lovely with the strings and all of that, and the brass, but not as memorable. The fascinating thing is the Marius Constant one. Do 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 do. All you have to do is do that, and you're in the Twilight Zone, and that's been referenced, ever since.
Ever since.
So, so the problem, of course, with Bernard Herrmann's theme is, although it's very lyrical and very lovely, and appropriate for Twilight Zone, it's not memorable in the same way that the Marius Constant theme is. It's not hummable, or let's put it this way: you guys could probably hum it, but it doesn't come up a lot in conversation. And so Bernard Herrmann was hired. He was one of the composers on the first season of Twilight Zone. He did a brilliant score for an episode that Serling wrote called Walking Distance, which is just exemplary. But
Yes.
so he was hired to also, compose the theme for Twilight Zone, and it certainly works. And if you watch those first season episodes, Rod has a narration over that theme, as he did with the other Twilight Zone theme. But I think the powers that be recognized that that was not as distinctive as they might have wanted. And Twilight Zone after the first season was definitely a hit. Rod Serling won an Emmy for best drama series. George Clemens, the DP, won an Emmy as well. So I think they wanted something that would be a little more catchy. And Lud Gluskin was head of the CBS music department at the time, and this is where it gets really interesting, because they did not. Marius Constant was a French avant-garde composer, certainly not one of the Hollywood staple like Franz Waxman and Bernard Herrmann and even Jerry Goldsmith ultimately would come to be. So you go, well, what the hell? Lud Gluskin was a old European guy. He knew a lot of the musicians in Europe. I think, and as a result, he had previously hired Marius Constant to write music for the CBS Music Library. And I'm going to read this from the book because I just want to get it absolutely right. So in the 1950s, Lud Gluskin was also the orchestrator and so forth, and he commissioned two pieces for the CBS Music Library from Marius Constant. And Marius Constant was born in 1925 in Romania. So the two pieces he commissioned were Étrange Number 3, or we could say Numéro 3, and Milieu Number 2. Okay, for electric guitar, bongo, saxophone, and French horn. This is the interesting part. Marius Constant was never commissioned to write a theme for the Twilight Zone. He probably didn't even know what the Twilight Zone was. He probably had never seen it or heard of it. But these two pieces were in the music library. They had that jazzy quality and that percussive quality that Lud Gluskin wanted. So he basically spliced these two together to become the Twilight Zone theme. And as a result, he neither had to pay anything additional, because he'd already paid Marius Constant a few $100
Oh
for
my
those
God.
themes. He neither had to pay him royalties nor credit him. And that's why Marius Constant is not widely known as the composer of that theme, because there's no on-screen credit. And so even though Marius Constant composed for decades and was named a commander of the Foreign Legion in his later years, and inducted into the Academy des Beaux-Arts, he never got any money from that Twilight Zone theme. He died in 2004, and he's buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. But that must have been a strange thing for him, because by the time he was like, in 2004, of course the Twilight Zone theme would have been known worldwide, and he wasn't getting a penny for it. So, and another interesting side note is, during the production of Twilight Zone, there was a musician strike here in Hollywood, and so Lud Gluskin was CBS instructed Lud Gluskin to fly to Europe and re-record all the Twilight Zone music with a European orchestra, and those versions they didn't have to pay royalties on. And so again, a lot of the popularization of the music from Twilight Zone was because of that. They were utilizing those tracks rather than the original tracks where a Hollywood orchestra would have recorded it. So it's fascinating. It is a very interesting history screwing over the composer and the musicians, I guess.
It is a fascinating story, and